Chapter 4106. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 5. Feng Wu had risen from the spiritual master stage to the spiritual elder stage, then the spiritual lord stage, then the spiritual king stage, then the spiritual overlord stage, then the spiritual overlord stage, then the spiritual saint stage. Gong Sun Qing couldn't begin to imagine how many stages she had gone through. Her eyes widened and her heart raced. She couldn't believe that she had gotten into Imperial College together with Feng Wu. She had even considered herself to be Feng Wu's enemy. Recalling the stupid things she had done, Gong Sun Qing wished she could dig a hole and hide in it. Meanwhile, Long Yenny, the head of Dragon Valley, rose to his feet in excitement and stared at Feng Wu. Last time at the banquet, the girl wasn't his match when she fought Princess Yenling, but now Long Yenny wasn't her match anymore. The stark contrast took Long Yenny by surprise. Long Yenny wasn't the only one who was shocked. The head of the Dugu family felt the same way, but unlike Long Yenny, who was a kind man, the head of the Dugu family was filled with jealousy. Right now, Feng Wu had no idea how shocking her cultivation level was. All she cared about was the master of the Firmament Palace. Once upon a time, Master Yun was like an immeasurable mountain to her, someone she could only look up to. However, now that Feng Wu had risen to a level 5 spiritual saint, she looked down upon the head of the Firmament Palace. Whoosh! There was a flash of light. As everyone watched in astonishment, the fallen star sword pierced the master of the Firmament Palace in the heart. Everyone's head went blank, including the master of the Firmament Palace. She lowered her head and stared blankly at the sword that had pierced her heart. She then looked down at Feng Wu. Her pupils contracted, and she was trembling from head to toe. She couldn't believe her eyes. She couldn't believe it. She opened her mouth, but no words would come out. She looked down at the sword that had pierced her heart. Finally, she looked up at Feng Wu again and came back to herself. She wanted to step back, but as soon as she did, the fallen star sword in Feng Wu's hand turned her in the chest. Blood gushed out as the sword was drawn out. Pressing her chest, Master Yun gritted her teeth and turned to flee, but Feng Wu wouldn't give her that chance. No one saw how Feng Wu moved, but when they looked closely, they saw that Master Yun seemed to be trapped in a transparent cage. She wanted to get out but couldn't break the shield. She was anxious, but there was nothing she could do. Pressing a hand on her chest, she stumbled around. Trying to find a wave oilt, she looked like a prisoner on the verge of death, but there was no way out. She only accepted the fact that she was going to die when she swayed so hard that she almost fell to the ground. Gritting his teeth, she stared at Feng Wu. What level are you now? What's that swordplay of the world about? What's your relationship with Master Chu Tianxiao? How did you do it? Tell me. Feng Wu gave her a half-smile. Do you want to know? Chapter 4107. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 6. The head of the Firmament Palace stared at Feng Wu, hoping that she could answer his question. However, Feng Wu only smiled. How can I possibly answer your question? I'd rather die than make you a fool. Master Yun was astonished. Feng Wu chuckled. What did I do? Am I supposed to be merciful to someone who wants to destroy me? I'm not a saint. Master Yun knew perfectly well that Feng Wu would never forgive her. You want to kill me? Ha ha ha, she stumbled back and forth as blood gushed out of her mouth. It won't be that easy. Qingluan will kill you for me. She'll take revenge for me. Feng Wu gave her a half-smile. I've killed her master, so why should I be worried about her? Master Yun, goodbye. After that, Feng Wu raised her hand and the next second the shield exploded. Master Yun, who had been severely injured by Feng Wu, was pulverized. Back in northern Yen, she had ambushed Jun Linyuan on behalf of the head of the Zhou family. 3 spiritual saints joined hands and almost drove Jun Linyuan crazy. Feng Wu still remembered that. Therefore, she had killed the head of the Firmament Palace this time. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes when she saw the blood clots on the ground. She felt great to have her revenge. However, the looks the others gave her had changed completely. At first, when the Empress Dowager scolded her, Feng Wu's supporters broke into a cold sweat. Feng Wu's enemies were all gloating over her predicament, but as soon as Feng Wu made her move, they knew how capable she was. Seeing that Feng Wu had insulted the Empress Dowager and killed the head of the Firmament Palace, Lady Wang almost choked. Fear filled her. She and Feng Sang looked at each other and both saw fear in each other's eyes. Both covered their chests and looked away. That was so scary. Their hearts were beating so fast. The Empress Dowager was the most astonished of them all. The Empress Dowager's first move was Granny Gui, and Feng Wu kicked her away without hesitation. The second move was Nameless, and Feng Wu threw him away. The third move was the Master of the Firmament Palace. The Empress Dowager had indeed used a secret signal to bring the head of the Firmament Palace here. Otherwise, the Empress Dowager was worried that the Emperor's people would stop her from taking Feng Wu away. But now, Feng Wu had killed Master Yun. The Empress Dowager sat there with a grim look on her face and didn't know what to do next. She looked at Lady Northern Feng, hoping that the lady would give her an excuse so that she could go back to the Imperial Palace as soon as possible. Lady Wang wasn't the only one who was scared. As the Empress Dowager, she was equally nervous. When Feng Wu stared at her with her piercing black eyes, the Empress Dowager had the feeling that Feng Wu wanted to throttle her. It had to be an illusion. She was the Empress Dowager. However, the Empress Dowager's eyes were twitching, but Lady Northern Feng kept her astonished gaze on Feng Wu. She never looked back at the Empress Dowager, which infuriated her. Chapter 4108 Clouds Follow Dragons and Wind Follow Tigers. 7. Just then, hasty footsteps came from outside. Mother, stop! Emperor Wu's voice arrived before he did. Duan Chaoga had run to Emperor Wu for help when she saw how the Master of the Firmament Palace was bullying Feng Wu. Duan Chaoga made it sound so serious that she almost said that the Master of the Firmament Palace was going to stab Feng Wu in the chest. Emperor Wu was really anxious. After all, he knew his mother very well. When she was really willful, nothing could stop her. However, when Emperor Wu arrived with a group of people, trying to save Feng Wu from the Empress Dowager, however, what Emperor Wu saw when he arrived wasn't as miserable as he had expected. Looking from the ground at the pale-faced Empress Dowager and the indifferent Feng Wu, he was confused. What was going on? After taking care of the head of the Firmament Palace, Feng Wu turned around and nodded at Emperor Wu. She then smiled at the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's stomach lurched when she saw the look in Feng Wu's eyes, and she looked away involuntarily. But the Empress Dowager soon came back to herself. That wasn't right. She was the Empress Dowager and had never been intimidated by anyone. Why was she so scared of Feng Wu now? Hence, she turned around and glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu used to respect the Empress Dowager for she was Jun Linyuan's grandmother, and she had tolerated the willful Empress Dowager over and over again. However, as a result, the Empress Dowager was able to do whatever she wanted. Therefore, Feng Wu wasn't going to let her have her way anymore. She said indifferently, "Is that all the help you've hired?" That contemptuous tone almost gave the Empress Dowager a heart attack. Granny Lan's stomach lurched and she cursed inwardly. She had a bad feeling because the Empress Dowager had been the one who had forced Feng Wu to fight back, which was enough to prove that Feng Wu still tolerated the Empress Dowager. But Feng Wu wasn't going to back off now. She had provoked the Empress Dowager, which meant that she was taking the initiative. Of course, the Empress Dowager could sense it. She gritted her teeth and stared at Feng Wu. She's crossed the line. She really has. The Empress Dowager turned around and glared at Emperor Wu. You've brought her up. Look what she's like now. Not only did she talk back to me, but she has also insulted me on purpose. Is that even allowed? Emperor Wu didn't know what to say. The Empress Dowager went on. I'm not only the Empress Dowager, but I'm also Junjun's grandmother, the one who brought him up. She's not even married yet, but she's already so disloyal. Are you really going to make her the crown prince's wife? Emperor Wu felt a headache coming on. Why was he here? Sigh. Emperor Wu sighed inwardly, but he still had to solve the problem. He was already in poor health, and he looked even paler now. He went up to the Empress Dowager with a wry smile and said, "Mother, let's go back to the palace." As for the Empress Dowager's accusation, Emperor Wu pretended that he didn't hear her. Many people were shocked by Emperor Wu's attitude. Chapter 4109. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 8. Was Emperor Wu going to let Feng Wu go just like that? Why didn't he blame Feng Wu? Wasn't Emperor Wu supposed to be the Empress Dowager's most filial son? Or did Emperor Wu think more highly of Feng Wu than the Empress Dowager did? No, that wasn't possible. Many people shook their heads. The Empress Dowager was dumbfounded as well. She stared at Emperor Wu. However, Emperor Wu only said, "Mother, let's go back to the palace." Emperor Wu then held the Empress Dowager's arm. The Empress Dowager's face turned livid. This was outrageous. Not only was Junjun on Feng Wu's side, but even the Emperor was on her side. What kind of a person was she? At that thought, the Empress Dowager glared at Feng Wu and hated her to the bone. Emperor Wu wanted to keep things quiet, so the Empress Dowager had to be sensible, no matter how reluctant she was. However, things didn't always go as planned, such as now. "You want to leave after killing someone from my firmament palace?" A cold voice rang out. The voice reminded one of a fiend from hell, and it kept resonating in people's heads, making them shudder. Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked around, but no one was there. It was as if that person was intimidating them from a very far-away place. Because of that, it was even more terrifying. "It's the matriarch of the Firmament Palace." The Empress Dowager realized what had happened and cried out. The Empress Dowager glared at Feng Wu as she spoke, and she didn't try to hide her satisfaction at Feng Wu's predicament. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and smiled. "Master Yun wants to give my divine phoenix blood to Zhuo Qinghuan. Your Majesty, do you think that's just?" The Empress Dowager didn't know what to say. However, the cold voice only smirked. "We want to take your divine phoenix blood, and that'll be it. Fighting will be your original sin." Feng Wu said, "That's a bold statement." The cold voice said, "You're not capable enough to speak. Die." After that, the dark energy of death descended from above and charged at Feng Wu. "Watch out!" Feng Sun panicked. The patriarch of the Firmament Palace had gone too far. She was going to kill Xiao Wu to get their dignity back. That was why she was so merciless. Feng Wu quickly ran out of the main hall and into the spacious courtyard. However, the black vortex followed her everywhere. "I didn't expect you to be able to dodge that strike. I see that you've become a spiritual saint in a few years because of the divine phoenix blood." The cold voice was filled with excitement and greed. Feng Wu even had a feeling that Zhuo Qinghuan didn't really need her divine phoenix blood. It was what the matriarch wanted. Moreover, she had said it aloud. Naturally, the matriarch was infuriated. She had surpassed the spiritual saint stage. What kind of an existence was that? Before, people had only been imagining it, but now they knew. Even Emperor Wu couldn't intervene in a battle like this. "Die!" The matriarch flew into a rage out of humiliation. A gilded kill enlarged before it fell. It wanted to crush Feng Wu. Chapter 4110. Clouds follow dragons, wind follow tigers. 9. The words rolled down so fast. Emperor Wu cursed inwardly. "Stop!" Many people were nervous, and some gloated inwardly, but what they thought never happened. That was because, just when the word was about to crush Feng Wu, a streak of light exploded from Feng Wu's body, shattering the word. "Ling Hu, how dare you sabotage my plan?" An angry voice rang out. Master Ling's voice came from afar as well. "Do you dare to come to the imperial capital?" Neither of them had shown up in their real forms. They had exchanged blows from afar, but it was very easy to tell who was stronger. Emperor Wu let out a breath of relief. Luckily, Master Ling Hu was here to hold down the fort. Otherwise, these monsters would destroy the foundation of the empire. Only then did Emperor Wu realize that this was a world where only the strong were respected, and sovereigns came second. It was just that the powerful cultivators were hidden behind the scenes, and the emperor was in charge of maintaining order. For a moment, Emperor Wu was both glad and disappointed. The Empress Dowager couldn't understand it. She looked around, trying to find traces of the matriarch of the Firmament Palace. After exchanging a blow with Master Ling Hu, the matriarch never made another sound. Was she going to give up just like that? The Empress Dowager was displeased. Emperor Wu sighed inwardly when he saw the Empress Dowager's reaction and recalled what he had told earlier about Feng Wu killing Master Yun of the Firmament Palace. Feng Wu had grown into a great tree, and the Empress Dowager was still trying to take her down. She was asking for trouble. Emperor Wu decided that he would communicate with the Empress Dowager after he took her back home. If she wouldn't listen, he would send her away. Back to the palace. Emperor Wu glanced at the Empress Dowager, and his tone had never been so serious. The guests all dropped to their knees to see Emperor Wu off. Once Emperor Wu was gone, they would go back to their own residences. However, what happened today made them realize how capable Feng Wu really was. However, things didn't end there because someone else arrived. Why are you all here? Even the emperor isn't in his own palace. A cheerful voice rang out. A teenager rode a giant beast and flew toward them from afar, followed by 8 servants. They were more like guards than servants. All 8 guards were capable cultivators. One look in Feng Wu could tell that they were all spiritual saints. The leader of the team was at least a peak spiritual saint. It was even possible that he had surpassed the spiritual saint stage because Feng Wu couldn't tell how capable he really was. All she knew was that his cultivation level was unfathomable. They were riding giant beasts that had never existed on this continent, and each beast was a powerful spiritual saint. They were so powerful that it made one despair. The spiritual saint's intimidating energy almost made the people of the Junwu Empire drop to their knees. Only influential families in the imperial capital could attend a birthday party like this, and they were considered top-notch cultivators in the Junwu Empire. However, they felt defeated and had to flee for their lives. Chapter 41:11 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 10. Who are you people? It wasn't the right time for Emperor Wu to speak, so Lord Mu, Emperor Wu's confidant, spoke instead. Other people might not recognize them, but Feng Wu did. She had met these people when she was in the Dongsang Kingdom, and they were all with Yenyu. However, there were a lot of them back then, but now there were only 9 of them. The 9 of them almost crushed the Junwu Empire cultivators. They were still hovering in midair and looking down at the most respected people of the Junwu Empire. To them, these people were as petty as ants. It was as if they could crush them with a stomp of their feet. Young General, there's no need to waste your breath on them. Just kill them all. The teenagers' men didn't even try to lower their voices. Young General? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. So, this man was a young general in the Dian Empire? Did he come here with Yenyu? Which family's young general? Feng Wu asked. The young general of the Yi family. The teenager raised his eyebrows when he saw Feng Wu's face and teased her. You're a pretty girl. Are you engaged? How frivolous. Feng Wu straightened her face and asked coldly, Are you from the Dian Empire? With a wave of his hand, young General Yi and his men landed with their mounts. Jumping off, young General Yi walked toward Feng Wu. He then stopped in front of Feng Wu with a condescending smile on his face. Feng Wu didn't like this condescending attitude, so she asked coldly, Are you really from the Dian Empire? Yes. The teenager smiled at Feng Wu. Why are you here? Feng Wu asked directly. Well, rubbing his chin, the teenager turned around and looked at the crowd. However, He no longer had that smile on his face when he looked at Feng Wu. Instead, he looked cold and cruel, and there was a murderous look in his eyes. Those he glanced at felt a chill run down their spines, and they were only centimeters away from death. To harvest, of course. The teenager turned to Feng Wu with a smile. You have wheat here, don't you? It's like harvesting wheat when it's ripe. Understand? Ordinary people might not understand it, but the upper echelon of the Junwu Empire did. By harvesting, the Dayan Empire didn't mean harvesting wheat. They were going to harvest human heads. The teenager stopped looking at Feng Wu and went up to Emperor Wu. He stared at Emperor Wu and smirked. Judging by your attire, are you the king of this small Junwu kingdom? From the emperor of the Junwu Empire to the king of a small Junwu Empire. One could only imagine how frustrated Emperor Wu was. However, his opponent was simply too intimidating, and everyone could sense the threat. By then, many capable cultivators had arrived at Emperor Wu's side to protect him. They had been hiding in the dark all this time, but now they had all shown up. Feng Wu looked around and saw that Emperor Wu was quite resourceful. He had 7 spiritual saints with him, and they were all quite capable. Chapter 41:12 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 11. Feng Wu looked around and saw that Emperor Wu was quite resourceful. He had 7 spiritual saints with him, and they were all quite capable. But Feng Wu wasn't sure. Not only did the enemy have 9 spiritual saints, but they also had 9 spiritual saint mount. Moreover, Yen Yu also had a large group of spiritual saints. The Dayan Empire had sent an army of spiritual saints. The teenager glanced at the cultivators around Emperor Wu and asked, "What's that supposed to mean? Are we going to start a war?" Seeing so many capable cultivators, Lord Mu was filled with confidence. He stepped forward and stared at young General Yi. What does the Dayan Empire want? He wasn't the only one who was so confident. The others were thrilled to see the row of spiritual saints around Emperor Wu. They all rubbed their hands together, thinking that Emperor Wu and the Dayan Empire would be a worthy rival. But Emperor Wu wasn't so sure. He threw a dirty look at Lord Mu, telling him to stay out of it. However, it was obvious that Lord Mu was blinded by all the spiritual saints, and he gloated. What do you mean by harvest? What on earth do you want? However, Lord Mu's eyes widened before he could finish. Young General Yi suddenly reached out, grabbed Lord Mu by the throat, and picked him up. As a lord and Emperor Wu's favorite subject, Lord Mu wasn't the most superior figure in the empire, but now, he was being picked up by young General Yi of the Dayan Empire like a chicken. Let go. Only then did he realize that young General Yi wasn't joking. He really could kill him. Would he kill Lord Mu? Many people found it impossible. As overbearing as the Dayan Empire was, Lord Mu was still Emperor Wu's subject, so the Dayan Empire had to show him some respect. Even Emperor Wu thought the same. Although Feng Wu had left him a message earlier, saying that the Dayan Empire wanted to destroy the Junwu Empire, Emperor Wu wasn't completely convinced. Let him go. Emperor Wu stared at young General Yi with a grim look in his eyes. But to everyone's surprise, young General Yi was so ferocious. He didn't let go of Lord Mu. Not only wouldn't he let go of the Lord, but he was also going to kill the latter. Crack! There was the sound of breaking bones. Broken bones. The larynx. Feng Wu rushed to his side and saw with her own eyes that Lord Mu's neck had been snapped. His head had fallen to his chest, and he was dead. There was dead silence all around. Everyone was astonished. How was that even possible? That should never have happened. But it just happened. That was the famous Lord Mu. Arg! Lady Mu screamed and passed out. That scream woke everyone up. They looked at each other and saw fear in each other's eyes. Chapter 41:13 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 12. A chill ran down their spines. The Empress Dowager, who was a few steps away, swayed when she saw this and almost fainted with Lady Mu. That was so cruel. That was unbelievable. Emperor Wu looked up and stared at young General Yi. How dare you? Young General Yi gave Emperor Wu an innocent look. Why wouldn't I dare? That's so strange. Emperor Wu was so angry that he trembled and felt a chill run down his spine. Jun Linyuan would be upset at him all the time, and Emperor Wu would tremble from anger. But now, Emperor Wu missed Jun Linyuan, his talented son. Young General Yi glanced at the people behind Emperor Wu, then at everyone else. Everyone were already in awe of him, but now they were terrified. He had killed Lord Mu without hesitation, which meant that they were no more than ants to him. However, there was nothing Emperor Wu could do about it. Emperor Wu stared at young General Yi. Young General Yi suddenly smiled and said to Emperor Wu, I counted just then. There are quite a few of you, and 10 of you are above the spiritual saint stage. Fine. Since this is the first time we're harvesting, well, cut down the number. Well, only take 7. Emperor Wu paled even more. It wasn't that he hadn't heard young General Yi, but he didn't dare to listen. The Empress Dowager asked in a trembling voice, What do you mean? Young Master Yi glanced at the Empress Dowager and said in a serious tone, Don't you know what I mean? Do you need me to explain it to you? The Empress Dowager said, Explain yourself. Young General Yi said arrogantly, Fine. Since you don't understand, I'll cut to the chase. What I'm saying is that you 10 spiritual saints should cut off 7 of your heads, and I'll take them with me. That way, this harvest will be over and you'll have a year of peace. What do you think? The Empress Dowager almost fainted. Young Master Yi's attention was indeed on the Empress Dowager now. He smiled at her and said, It seems that the old woman has an idea. What do you think? An old woman? The Empress Dowager almost fainted when she heard that. How dare he? Many people wanted to laugh when they heard that, but they couldn't. Feng Wu was the only one who chuckled. In the silence, Feng Wu's laughter was especially conspicuous. Everyone looked in her direction, and even young General Yi couldn't help but glance at Feng Wu. Feng Wu lowered her head and pretended that nothing had happened. The Empress Dowager glared at Feng Wu and clenched her fist. She wouldn't let Feng Wu get away with this. Never. The Empress Dowager looked at young Master Yi. Did you just say that I'll be the one to choose? Young Master Yi nodded. The Empress Dowager suddenly smiled. Young General Yi, have you heard of the divine phoenix blood? Young General Yi's eyes lit up a little. This is great. Amazing. A genius like that is more useful than 100 other cultivators of the same level put together. The Empress Dowager nodded. We have a spiritual saint here with the divine phoenix blood. Do you think she's worth 6 ordinary spiritual saints? Chapter 41:14 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 13 Mother. Emperor Wu's face was livid, and he scolded the Empress Dowager loudly. However, he didn't seem to be as intimidating as before, at least not to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager was thrilled. She felt that she was doing something great for the Junwu Empire. Hence, the Empress Dowager told young General Yi in satisfaction, She's a spiritual saint with the divine phoenix blood. Kill her. According to you, she's worth 100 spiritual saints. Mother! Emperor Wu tugged at the Empress Dowager and bellowed, What are you talking about? Your Majesty! The Empress Dowager was displeased as well. She stared at Emperor Wu and said, Are you out of your mind? Didn't you hear what the young general said? He's from a superior empire and is here to kill powerful cultivators. What are you going to do about the 7 spiritual saints? Are you going to kill them? Emperor Wu's face turned livid. The Empress Dowager said, Or should we choose from the influential families? The Long family? The Dugu family? The Gongsun family? Should each family sacrifice a spiritual saint? Emperor Wu's face darkened. The Empress Dowager said angrily, I won't let you do it even if you want to. These are the foundations of the Junwu Empire. We can't afford to lose any of them. Emperor Wu said angrily, Does Xiao Wu deserve to be sacrificed? The Empress Dowager said, What choice do I have, then? Do you think I want to? I don't want to, but what's going on here? She can make up the remaining 6 places all by herself. Who else can we choose? Just tell me. Emperor Wu clenched his fists in frustration. His head was spinning, and he thought he was going to pass out. No. Absolutely not. Emperor Wu gritted his teeth. Even if I'm dead, nothing can happen to Xiao Wu. We can't sacrifice her. Are you crazy or something? The Empress Dowager was furious at Emperor Wu's stubbornness. Do you know what you're talking about? Are you really going to harm the entire Junwu Empire? Or are you in love with her? Mother, what are you talking about? Emperor Wu was furious. She's Junjun's love of life. If Junjun knows what happened today, he'll lose his mind. He really will. At the thought of Jun Linyuan, the Empress Dowager was much less intimidating, but she still wouldn't admit it. Didn't I say that I would marry Zhua Qingluan to Junjun? The feelings of a young man are fleeting. As time goes by, everything will pass, including Junjun. Junjun is different. Emperor Wu didn't know what to say to make the Empress Dowager understand. Jun Linyuan's feelings for Feng Wu were completely different. If he really sacrificed Feng Wu today, Jun Linyuan would tear down the entire Junwu Empire when he came back. While Emperor Wu and the Empress Dowager were bickering, young Master Yi crossed his arms and watched with a smile. Have you made up your mind? Young Master Yi prompted them with a grin. Although he was smiling, everyone knew that he was a merciless killer. The Empress Dowager spoke first. It's been decided. Take her away and do whatever you want with her. No. Emperor Wu took a deep breath, as if he had made a difficult decision. If you want to harvest someone, do it with me. Let Xiao Wu go. Have you lost your mind? The Empress Dowager glared at him. Chapter 41:15. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 14. She could live with the idea of sacrificing 7 spiritual saints, but why would Emperor Wu do that? Because, Emperor Wu smiled bitterly. Because he recalled what Feng Wu told him once. He finally knew that the Dian Empire didn't want the 7 spiritual overlords but the entire Junwu Empire. He didn't want to live to see such a cruel thing happen. Take me. Emperor Wu smiled bitterly. If you have to take someone. Young General Yi looked at Emperor Wu in surprise. It had never occurred to him that the Emperor of the Junwu Empire would sacrifice himself to save other people. That was unbelievable. However, if that's the case, I can do it. Young Master Yi nodded at Emperor Wu. No. The Empress Dowager rushed to Emperor Wu's side and spread out her arms, protecting him like a mother hen. We can't sacrifice the Emperor. Never. The others also knelt down and pleaded not to take Emperor Wu away. Young Master Yi chuckled and gave the Empress Dowager a sidelong glance. If Emperor Wu can't do it, I can always choose you. The Empress Dowager looked astonished. Staring at the Empress Dowager, young Master Yi gave her a half-smile. Do you want to do it instead? The Empress Dowager froze on the spot as if she was dumbfounded. Young Master Yi darted a contemptuous look at the Empress Dowager and smirked. If you can't bring yourself to die, stop acting like you're in charge of everything. You're not in charge here. The Empress Dowager went scarlet in the face, but she didn't dare to retort. With a wave of his hand, young General Yi said, That's enough. Take Emperor Wu away. Soon, someone came up to fetch Emperor Wu. However, Feng Wu stepped out and shouted, Wait! With a wave of young General Yi's hand, the man stopped and glanced at Feng Wu. Staring at Feng Wu, young Master Yi smiled. Kiddo, if you want to trade someone for your emperor, you can always do that. Since you're so pretty, I'll take you whoever you want. Feng Wu glanced at the Empress Dowager, and the latter blanched. The Empress Dowager's stomach lurched. Was this girl going to abuse her power for personal revenge? How dare you! The Empress Dowager bellowed. Feng Wu smirked. Didn't Her Majesty say that she was so nice to His Majesty, and that she loved the people more than her own children? What? You don't want to make a little sacrifice? The Empress Dowager said. You! Feng Wu waved her off. Of course am not you. I won't do such a thing. Feng Wu turned to young General Yi. Release His Majesty. Young Master Yi said. Kiddo, you can't take advantage of your good looks. Yes, you're very pretty, but you can't do whatever you want like this. Feng Wu stared at young General Yi. I said, let His Majesty go. Young Master Yi said, what if? I just won't? Feng Wu smiled. I won't be so nice then. Feng Wu said, yes. Young Master Yi almost laughed. You're only a level 5 spiritual saint. Do you know what I am? How dare you challenge me? Feng Wu said solemnly. His Majesty has done me a great favor. I have to return it. Even if I can't defeat you, I still have to fight you. Chapter 41:16 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 15 Young General Yi was still smiling. I'm not competing with you in ordinary challenges. If you want to fight, fight for real. Feng Wu immediately said, all right. Young General Yi narrowed his eyes. I'm talking about a fight-or-die battle. Feng Wu said, all right. It was rare for young General Yi to be so serious. Keeping his face straight, he studied Feng Wu with his sharp eyes, trying to figure out why she was so confident. How dare a mere level 5 spiritual saint challenge me? That's preposterous. Young Master Yi stared at Feng Wu. But I can send someone to fight you. Situnanbua. Yes, said Situnanbua. Young General Yi said to Feng Wu, Situnanbua, a level 6 spiritual saint. If you can defeat him, you'll be exempted. Don't think that I'm taking advantage of you by having a level 6 spiritual saint fight you. In fact, Situnanbua is already the weakest member of this team. We can't find anyone weaker. Feng Wu said, all right. Young General Yi said to Situnanbua, there's no need to show mercy. Just kill her. You'll be rewarded. Everyone drew in their breath. Before, young General Yi seemed to treat Feng Wu differently, but now, it seemed that he wanted to kill Feng Wu. The people of the Dian Empire were indeed very ferocious. Go ahead. Feng Wu stared at Situnanbua and was ready for battle. Situnanbua stared at Feng Wu with a cold look in his eyes. The next second, he rose to his feet. Thump, thump, thump. Situnanbua was indeed relentless. There was nothing fancy about his moves, but they were all simple and efficient. His attack was straightforward, expansive, and powerful. Feng Wu was a level 5 spiritual saint, and many people were worried about her. Although Feng Wu had fought Nameless and Master Yun in a row, Situnanbua of the Dian Empire was obviously more difficult to handle now. But Feng Wu knew perfectly well that Situnanbua wasn't her match. She could kill Situnanbua in 10 strikes, but in the end, Feng Wu still decided to hide some of her strength. The battle lasted for 50 rounds before the winner was determined. Feng Wu swiped her fallen star sword across the air, and Situnanbua spat out a mouthful of blood. Whoosh! Blood gushed out like a fountain. Young General Yi's face darkened. Situnanbua, you've lost. Back off. Young Master Yi bellowed. Holding his throat, Situnanbua threw a dirty look at Feng Wu before going back to his team. Apart from young General Yi and Situnanbua, all other members of the Dian Empire stared at Feng Wu with cold eyes. They didn't expect the Junwu Empire to have such a capable cultivator. She actually dared to kill a member of the Dian Empire. If young General Yi hadn't shouted in time, Feng Wu would have pierced Situnanbua's throat by now. Even God wouldn't have been able to save him then. Young General, good mornin'. Please let me fight. Good mornin'? That was such an awkward name that Feng Wu couldn't help but look at the person. It was a middle-aged man with a dark face. He was as stalwart as an iron tower and looked like a strong warrior. Young General Yi darted a look at Good Mornin' and remained silent. All Feng Wu needed to do now was stall. Chapter 41:17. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 16. She had sent Feng Xiaoqi to get Luo Zilin. Luo Zilin usually followed Feng Wu around, but Feng Wu didn't know where he was this morning, so Feng Xiaoqi went to look for him. If they could find him, they might be able to solve the problem today. Although Feng Wu didn't know where she got her confidence from, she knew it. Therefore, she put her bet on Luo Zilin. All she needed to do now was stall. Good Morning asked for another battle. Young General Yi stared at Feng Wu. Good is a level 7 spiritual saint. Do you dare to fight him? Everyone drew in their breath. A level 7 spiritual saint? What kind of a cultivator was that? Emperor Wu blanched again and stopped Feng Wu. You're not his match. Stop fighting. Everyone thought that Feng Wu wouldn't be his match. As a matter of fact, it made sense. Feng Wu was already a level 5 spiritual saint, and it was already a miracle that she could defeat a level 6 spiritual saint. But now, she was challenging Good, who was a level 7 spiritual saint. She had to have a death wish. But Feng Wu only smiled. Sure. The others looked at Feng Wu in resignation. He was a level 7 spiritual saint. Lady Wang almost choked on her own breath. Feng Wu, the girl they had grown up with, had become a spiritual saint so easily. Her own children had made no progress. She felt like crying. Lady Wang wasn't the only one feeling that way. The others held their breaths as well, hysterical at Feng Wu nervously, overwhelming dytne astonishment they had experienced over and over again. Young General Yi shifted his gaze and told Good Morning, fine. You fight her. I'll say it again. Kill her. Good Morning nodded. Don't worry, young General. It's no big deal. But was it really a piece of cake? Good Morning stared at Feng Wu with a half smile. Young lady, don't worry. I'll let you make 3 strikes first. Feng Wu nodded with a smile. All right. Good Morning was speechless. This was the first time he had met such an unpredictable girl, and he didn't know what to do. But it also indirectly showed how scared the girl was of him, thought Good. However, he only realized how capable the girl was when the battle started. There was no doubt that a level 7 spiritual saint would defeat a level 5 spiritual saint. But to his disappointment, he couldn't kill the girl in one go because she was too fast. She didn't fight him head-on and kept slipping away. Looking up at the sky, young Master Yi frowned and reminded Good Morning, faster. Good Morning smiled bitterly and complained. She won't even fight me. I have to follow her because she's fast. Young General Yi rolled his eyes. Isn't speed a part of one's capability? Good Morning, you're not inferior to her, are you? Young Master Yi wasn't the only one making fun of Good Morning. His teammates were laughing with him as well. Seeing that he couldn't take the girl down, his friends didn't know what to say. Hey Good, can you do it or not? If not, get down here. You're a level 7 spiritual saint, for heaven's sake. Have you forgotten how capable you are? You can't even defeat a level 5 spiritual saint. Chapter 41:18. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 17. Or is he pitying her because she's so pretty? We can't let that happen. All his friends were either laughing or attacking Good, which frustrated him greatly. He quickened his pace and intensified his attack, but Feng Wu was as slippery as a fish and kept running as fast as she could. Seeing the discussion and the battle, Emperor Wu suddenly had a strange feeling. Why was it that as soon as Feng Wu showed up, the Dian Empire didn't feel so hostile toward them anymore? Wasn't it supposed to be a one-sided battle between the Empire and its subject? But now, Feng Wu was fighting against her opponent as if they were equal. What an amazing girl! Emperor Wu thought to himself. All of a sudden, Feng Wu stumbled and almost fell. This is our chance. Young Master Yi and the others were all watching the battle, and they spoke first when they saw Feng Wu's opening. Feng Sun and the others hadn't reached the spiritual saint stage yet, so they didn't know what was going on. Seeing the pleasant surprise on young Master Yi's face, Feng Sun was worried sick. Was Xiao Wu going to be in trouble? Good Mornin smirked and jumped to his feet. "I'll crush her." He pounced at Feng Wu, trying to pin her down. "Shit!" Young Master Yi was the first to react. "Good, back off." However, it was too late when young General Yi shouted those words. By then, Feng Wu had dodged and Good missed his target. It wasn't a complete miss because there was something under him. But at that moment there was a rumbling sound. There was a loud explosion, and the ground shook violently. Many rooms in the Feng clan had collapsed. Surrounded by the smoke, Good Mornin coughed, but soon, he screamed. It happened so fast that many people didn't see it clearly. "What's going on? What's going on?" many people asked. Long Yenny explained. Feng Wu dodged when he pounced at her and set a bomb on the ground. He didn't land on Feng Wu but on the bomb. It was impossible for him to dodge because the bomb was detonated. That was why the bomb exploded and injured Good Mornin. Feng Wu attacked him at the critical moment. Long Yenny was secretly astonished. It sounded easy, but it was very difficult to do. Moreover, it usually applied to cultivators of the same level, but Feng Wu was 2 levels lower than Good Mornin. Long Yenny couldn't figure out how Feng Wu did it. Feng Wu was so amazing that she calculated the time perfectly. The smoke dissipated. Good Mornin was covered in blood, severely injured, and barely breathing. Young General Yi was speechless. He didn't know what to say. "Idiot!" Young Master Yi stepped out and kicked Good Mornin hard. She was 2 levels lower than him, but he was beaten to this stage. Moreover, Feng Wu was capable enough to kill him, but because he was from the Dian Empire, she didn't want to provoke them, which was why she didn't kill him instantly. Young General Yi understood that, as did all the capable people here. That was why he was even angrier. Chapter 41:19 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 18. Young General Yi understood that, as did all the capable people here. That was why he was even angrier. Good Mornin didn't know what to say. "Get back!" Young Master Yi kicked him back into the team. He then turned his gaze on Feng Wu. Unfortunately, Feng Wu was sitting on the ground and recovering her spiritual essence. The battle just then might seem simple, but it was in fact a hair-raising one. One wrong move and Feng Wu could lose her life. Luckily, despite the tense process, it ended well. Right now, young General Yi was examining Feng Wu closely. Not only could a level 5 spiritual saint defeat a level 6 spiritual saint, but she could also defeat a level 7 spiritual saint. What kind of person was she? Fight again. Staring at Feng Wu, young General Yi didn't care if she was recovering her cultivation ability or not. He said directly, "Leiran, you're up." Leiran felt conflicted, but in the end, he followed young General Yi's order and stepped out. "You don't like it?" Young Master Yi stared at Leiran. Leiran said awkwardly, "Young General, I'm a level 8 spiritual saint, and she's just a level 5 one. She won't be able to withstand my strike. I don't want to fight her." Young General Yi smirked. "You don't want to fight her? Maybe you're the one who's going to lose." Leiran said, "That's impossible." Young Master Yi said, "Give it a go then." Leiran said, He wanted to say that he didn't want to fight a mere level 5 spiritual saint, so he stood there in frustration. "No," Emperor Wu intervened. "Xiao Wu can't fight anymore." Young General Yi looked at Feng Wu. "If you fight, you'll lose 1 less spiritual saint. Don't you want to?" He wanted to know how much potential Feng Wu would have in the end. "I'll take her place," a spiritual saint next to Emperor Wu volunteered. But young General Yi ignored him and only stared at Feng Wu. "You're the only option. Are you going to do it or not?" He added, "Don't you want to save them? If you win, you can save a spiritual saint. Can you bring yourself to do that?" When the repair was finally completed, Feng Wu rose to her feet and stared at young General Yi. Do you really want to know where my potential is? Young General Yi didn't try to hide it. He nodded. Yes. Feng Wu suddenly smiled. All right. Staring coldly at Feng Wu, young General Yi frowned. Do you agree? Feng Wu glanced at him. You aren't happy when I say no, and you won't like it when I say yes. What on earth do you want from me? Young General Yi nodded. All right. Leiran, do your best to force her to show her true capability. Leiran still felt conflicted. What potential? Young General, I'm a level 8 spiritual saint. If I can't even take down a level 5 one, I'll just cut my own belly open and kill myself. I won't be able to face the world anymore. Leiran believed that he was going to win. Everyone thought that Leiran was going to win, apart from the suspicious young General Yi. Feng Sun was whispering in Feng Wu's ear. Xiao Wu, how are you going to fight him? Say no and stall for a few more days. Boss Jun is coming back. Feng Wu smiled bitterly inwardly. A few days? Of course, they wouldn't let her stall for that long. She would be lucky if she could stall for 2 hours. Chapter 41:20. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 19. Feng Wu smiled at Feng Sun. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Feng Sun was exasperated. How can you be so sure? He's a level 8 spiritual saint. How are we supposed to fight him? He'll beat you to the ground as soon as you make a move. You can't go. I won't allow it. Feng Sun blocked Feng Wu's way as he spoke, and the look on his face was one of anxiety and self-reproach. Feng Wu knew what he was worried about and what he was blaming himself for. He was anxious because there was nothing he could do, and he blamed himself for the same reason. Feng Sun was already making rapid progress, but he and Feng Wu weren't on the same level. Feng Wu was all about rapid breakthroughs, and her speed was unmatched. Feng Wu smiled at Feng Sun. Just wait and see. Of course, Feng Sun didn't believe her, but he couldn't stop Feng Wu and could only watch her leave. As a matter of fact, Feng Wu had shocked everyone over and over again today, so much so that they were used to it. They had thought that Feng Wu was going to lose. That was true at first. Feng Wu had been losing ground the whole time and was in a sorry state. She wanted to run. She was faster than Good Mornin', but she still wasn't Leiran's match. Therefore, Feng Wu wasn't able to get away. Thump! Behind Feng Wu, Leiran struck out again. The energy rushed toward Feng Wu like a tidal wave, distorting the air. Feng Wu was hit on the back, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. That was the 10th mouthful of blood she had spat out. Feng Wu's clothes were covered with blood. She stumbled and could barely run. Young Master Yi narrowed his eyes and kept his sharp gaze on Feng Wu. He was watching her every move, even the tiniest one. Good Mornin' couldn't help but glance at young General Yi. He knew very well that although the general didn't seem to care about anything, he was actually a very scheming man. He might laugh and shout at other people, but he could change his attitude faster than anyone else. There were very few times that he could be serious. He didn't even bat an eyelash when he was around Prince Yenyu, but now, he was watching every move of this girl and didn't miss any expression on her face. Good Mornin' turned to look at the arena. He wasn't mistaken. Lei had indeed gained the upper hand. Feng Wu was losing ground. She would be killed after a few more strikes from Leiran, and had no hope of turning things around. So, what was young General Yi looking at? I knew it. Is she going to die? Seeing that Feng Wu had been struck again, young General Yi let out a breath of relief. He then said to Good Mornin', so, in terms of talent, Her Royal Highness is still the best. Good Mornin' rolled his eyes at young General Yi. Young General, what are you talking about? Her Royal Highness is a completely different story. Feng Wu is just a petty village girl from a small Junwu kingdom. How can she possibly be comparable to Her Royal Highness, the descendant of a heavenly god? You've got to be kidding me. Young General E neither nodded nor shook his head. He thought to himself, she's no random village girl. If she's given the chance to grow up, she'll have a promising future. Chapter 41:21 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 20, however. He then recalled the heavenly godlike princess of the Dian Empire. How proud could that girl be? Even when Princess Yen Ling wanted to be her study companion, she only had to say one thing. Yen Ling wasn't good enough for her. As expected, the princess was the only genius in the world. As for Feng Wu, she would die in the cradle. Young General E gave Lei Yiran a warning look, telling him to kill Feng Wu. Lei Yiran nodded, indicating that he understood. However, to their surprise, Feng Wu repeated the trick and pretended to fall again. How fake! Lei Yiran smirked. You've put on an act once and you want to do it again? I'm not going to fall for it this time. Lei Yiran didn't jump at Feng Wu, fearing that Feng Wu would throw another bomb at him. However, he had stayed where he was. There was a loud bang where Lei Yiran was standing. When he realized what had happened, 2 thick vines had shot out of the ground and wrapped around his legs, immobilizing him. At the same time, a poisonous gas surrounded him. Taking advantage of the poisonous gas, Feng Wu stumbled back. With a thump, she put a protective shield over herself. What? After forcing Lei Yiran back, she had put a protective shield over herself. What on earth was she doing? She could use this opportunity to run away. Young General E couldn't figure out what Feng Wu was doing until he saw that Feng Wu was cultivating with her legs crossed. Cultivate? Seriously? Young General E heard an obvious buzzing sound. Wasn't that the signal of a breakthrough? Avatar next. Chapter 41:22 Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 21. He didn't hear a word, for the toxin Feng Wu had released was meant for his ears. With the toxin in his eardrum, he couldn't hear a word. All he wanted to do now was to kill Feng Wu and treat his ears. However, when he charged at Feng Wu and exerted all his strength, Feng Wu used the momentum to absorb the impact. Thump, hum. Feng Wu was already a level 6 spiritual saint, and now she had reached level 7. What? Lei Yiran was so shocked that he rubbed his eyes, fearing that he was seeing things. What's going on? Why is she suddenly? Isn't she a level 7 spiritual saint? Since when did she become a level 7 spiritual saint? Or did she hide her true capability from the very beginning? Recalling everything that had happened, Lei Yiran said angrily to Feng Wu, "You're a level 7 spiritual saint, aren't you? You were pretending to be a level 5 spiritual saint." Feng Wu remained sitting on the ground with her legs crossed, trying to consolidate the spiritual essence she had absorbed from the breakthrough. A short distance away, young General E wanted to kick Lei Yiran away. How stupid! The people he brought were idiots. At first, young Master E had a sense of superiority as a member of the Dian Empire, but now, he felt that he had brought along an idiotic teammate. What did he mean by pretending to be a level 5 spiritual saint? She had just made a breakthrough in front of him. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was finally done with her breakthrough and tidying up. She rose to her feet. She's on her feet. Xiao Wu has risen to her feet after her breakthrough. That Lei Yiran didn't disturb her. He's such a nice person. You don't say. A breakthrough is supposed to be the most dangerous thing. If someone disturbs you, you may get injured or even suffer from qi deviation. I didn't know the Dian Empire had such a kind person. The speakers were from the Junwu Empire. They didn't try to keep their voices down, so young General E heard them. Right now, young General E wanted to kick Lei Yiran in the head. What an idiot! The murderous look in young General E's eyes sent a chill down Lei Yiran's spine. This wouldn't do. He had already made a mistake. He was trapped by the vines because he was too careless, and he was so shocked that his enemy made 2 breakthroughs in a row. If he went on like this, the young general would kill him. Lei Ran knew perfectly well that after losing 2 battles in a row, young General Yi's rage had reached its peak. Die! Infuriated, Lei Ran showed no mercy. Not only that, but he had also spared no effort. Right now, one was a level 7 spiritual saint, and the other a level 8 one. Which side would win? Xiao Wu is going to win, isn't she? She didn't lose even when she was a level 5 one, and she's only 1 level below that man now. I don't think she's going to lose. Not necessarily. Lei Ran was too careless before because he didn't think much of Feng Wu. But now, he has exerted all his power. After all, Feng Wu is 1 level below him. I don't think Feng Wu can defeat him. I think Feng Wu is going to lose too. After all, she was severely injured by Lei Ran. Chapter 41-23. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 22. Everyone offered their opinions. Members of the Junwu Empire and Dian Empire were discussing among themselves. Dude, you didn't lose for nothing. Lin Su, a level 9 spiritual saint, patted Situ Nanbua, who was a level 6 spiritual saint, with a smile on his face. Look, she has almost defeated a level 8 spiritual saint. Holding the wound in his throat, Situ Nanbua smiled bitterly, indicating that he wasn't comforted. But she really was a genius. Situ Nanbua looked up at young General Yi. He wanted to say that she was as talented as the princess, but he didn't dare to say it when he recalled that the princess was young General Yi's dream girl. I think she's going to win. Situ Nanbua made a mental bet on Feng Wu. That was indeed the case. Thump. In the end, Feng Wu kicked Lei Ran toward young General Yi. Lei Ran had no means of retaliating and was severely injured after he hit the ground. He kept coughing out blood. Good job. Feng Wu cupped her fists at Lei Ran with a smile. Lei Ran was mortified. Recalling what he said on the stage, he flew into a rage out of humiliation. Holding his breath, he threw a dirty look at Feng Wu, who gave him a perfectly guileless look. Lei Ran coughed out and spat out another mouthful of blood. Feng Wu cleared her throat and rubbed her nose. She looked into young General Yi's black eyes and smiled. He vomited blood himself. I didn't touch him. You can't blame it on me. Young General Yi kept his gaze on Feng Wu and studied her closely. She looked like an innocent girl who knew nothing about worldly affairs, but young General Yi knew perfectly well that she was a scheming girl. The girl was indeed attractive, but keeping her around would only bring disaster to wreak havoc. All she needed was a ladder, no, a wooden board, and she would be able to climb all the way up to the top. With her looks, as long as she was willing, she would be able to take over the Dian Empire. Therefore, he couldn't let her live. Staring at Feng Wu, young General Yi narrowed his eyes. You're not bad at all. You've already won 3 places for the Junwu Empire. Do you want to go on? There was a strange look in his eyes. Before Feng Wu could say yes, the Empress Dowager said, Of course. Emperor Wu glared at the Empress Dowager and was about to scold her when the Empress Dowager cut him off. Of course she will. She can fight level 8 opponents, can't she? She's level 7 now, so, of course, she can fight level 9 opponents, or even level I or level 2 spiritual emperors. Maybe she can make a breakthrough again. Mother? Emperor Wu was furious. What was that supposed to mean? Xiao Wu had used up a lot of her potential to make 2 breakthroughs just then. Emperor Wu had heard from Feng Wu that she had been trying her best not to make too many breakthroughs. Otherwise, it would damage her health. Moreover, it was extremely difficult for a spiritual saint to make a breakthrough, but the Empress Dowager made it sound so easy. She didn't see how difficult it was for Xiao Wu at all. Emperor Wu stared at the Empress Dowager. Chapter 41-24. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 23. Emperor Wu stared at the Empress Dowager. However, when he was about to say those words, He looked into the Empress Dowager's eyes. Seeing the matter-of-fact arrogance and selfishness in the Empress Dowager's eyes, Emperor Wu didn't want to say anything. Staring at Feng Wu, young General Yi smiled a little and said, "Since you've agreed to fight, let's do it." Meanwhile, Lin Su, a level 9 spiritual saint, was ready to fight. He was almost there. All he needed was an order from young General Yi. Lin Su wasn't the only one who thought that way. Those on Feng Wu's side also thought that a level 9 spiritual saint was going to fight, because that was how young General Yi had been doing. With each person he sent out, their cultivation level would rise by a level. Because of that, Emperor Wu didn't reject it on behalf of Feng Wu. Deep down, he thought that although it was dangerous, she could still fight. Young General Yi's decision was unexpected. He didn't send a level 9 cultivator because he was going to fight Feng Wu himself. He slowly walked up to Feng Wu, stopped in front of her, and gave her a half smile. "I'm your opponent this time." Feng Wu sighed inwardly. He really was going to do it himself. Feng Wu wondered if stalling would work. Would Luo Zilin really come? And would he really be useful? It was still unknown if his capability and his status in the Dian Empire would be enough to defeat these enemies. However, Feng Wu knew that if she didn't fight for it, the entire Junwu Empire would be destroyed. At that thought, Feng Wu stared at young General Yi with a sharp look in her eyes. By then, everyone around them had been astonished by what young General Yi did. Wait, what did I just hear? Am I hearing things? Young General Yi is going to fight her in person? His capability, Long Yanyi's face was livid. He said in a low voice, "This young General Yi has surpassed the spiritual saint stage. I think he's a spiritual sovereign." Why should be? Long Yanyi wasn't a spiritual sovereign, so he didn't know much about that stage. SSSS. Many people of the Junwu Empire drew in their breaths when they heard what Long Yanyi said. So cruel. That was so cruel. Feng Wu was only a level 5 spiritual saint 5 minutes ago, but the spiritual sovereign was going to fight her. That was outrageous. "I'll fight you." A peak level 9 spiritual saint next to Emperor Wu stepped out. Feng Wu agreed to fight. She would definitely die. However, young General Yi had many capable cultivators around him. Lin Su stepped out as soon as he heard those words. Crossing his arms, he smiled at the Junwu Empire cultivators. The level 9 spiritual saint on the Junwu Empire's side was an old eunuch with a hunched back. Despite his old age, he had bright eyes and seldom showed his face in public. He had been protecting Emperor Wu in the imperial palace. This time, when the Junwu Empire's life was hanging in the balance, he had no choice but to show his face. "If you want to fight, I'll fight with you. How about that?" Lin Su grinned at the eunuch. "Master Yu." Emperor Wu looked concerned. Chapter 41-25. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 24. Master Yu. Emperor Wu looked concerned. Yu the eunuch nodded at Emperor Wu, then walked up to young General Yi. "I'll fight you." Lin Su went up to him and grinned. "If you want to fight my general, you'll have to go through me first." Young General Yi waved his hand impatiently. "Go away. Don't get in my way." Lin Su gestured at Yu, but Yu didn't want to fight him. He had to keep an eye on Feng Wu. What if something happened to her? On the Junwu Empire's side, many people were worried about Feng Wu, but a few were secretly gloating over her predicament. Needless to say, they were from the Dugu family. Feng Wu had used the Hua family to destroy the Zhou family, and the Zhou family and the Dugu family were allies. The Dongsang Kingdom's influence in the Junwu Empire had shifted from the Zhou family to the Dugu family. Naturally, Princess Yan Ling was close to the Dugu family when she visited the Junwu Empire last time. And now, the Dian Empire was targeting Feng Wu, which was something the Dugu family loved to see. Mrs. Dugu and Master Dugu exchanged looks, and both saw excitement in each other's eyes. So, Feng Wu was going to die today. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was looking at young General Yi with an indifferent look on her face. Seeing how unperturbed she was, young General Yi thought even more highly of her. She was as magnanimous as his princess. Are you sure? Feng Wu sighed. Young General Yi chuckled. Of course. How about we kill your master you first? We'll have to kill 4 spiritual saints, anyway. How arrogant! Feng Wu hadn't felt so frustrated for a while. She had worked so hard so that she wouldn't be stepped on. But now, she had to work harder. Feng Wu smiled. Do you think you can kill me just like that? Young General Yi gave her a half-smile. How about we give it a go? Just then, someone said, we have Master Linghu. He's a spiritual sovereign, isn't he? Just then, they heard the sound of fighting. 2 people rushed into the other dimension. Feng Wu took a deep breath. Other people might not see it, but Feng Wu did. It was Master Linghu and a woman. If she guessed right, that woman was the matriarch of the Firmament Palace. Therefore, Master Linghu, the most powerful cultivator of the Junwu Empire, was stopped by the matriarch of the Firmament Palace, who was also a spiritual sovereign. Feng Wu was convinced that Master Linghu was better, but it would take a while for a spiritual sovereign to defeat his opponent. Therefore, she couldn't count on Master Linghu. Young General Yi grinned at Feng Wu. Did you see that? Master Linghu, your biggest trump card, has been lured away. Do you still count on him? I don't think so. Not only did young General Yi's words set Feng Wu off, but he also successfully set the other members of the Junwu Empire off. Emperor Wu's face went ghastly pale. The matriarch of the Firmament Palace was supposed to be a member of the Junwu Empire, but she had stalled Master Linghu. So, you're on your own, young lady. Young General Yi grinned at Feng Wu. I'm going to count to 3. Fight me or I'll start killing. Your choice. 3, 2, bring it on. Chapter 41-26. Clouds follow dragons and wind follow tigers. 25. Let's fight, Feng Wu said indifferently. Young General Yi glanced at Feng Wu with a smile, but he looked surprised. He had thought that Feng Wu would say no. After all, if he were in Feng Wu's place, he would never put himself in such danger to save someone else. Good. He nodded. Since you're so generous, I'll let you die in glory. Bring it on. After seeing Feng Wu's talent, young General Yi was even more intimidated by Feng Wu. As a result, he wanted to kill Feng Wu. As soon as the battle started, young General Yi exerted his full power. He struck down at Feng Wu. Before Feng Wu could steady herself, she flew backward like an arrow and landed on the ground. How terrifying! The spiritual overlord was indeed a capable cultivator. He only needed one strike. Many people on Feng Wu's side were concerned. Feng Wu had fought 3 battles today, and she was covered in wounds from them. Now that she had been severely injured, Xiao Wu, come back. Feng Sun rushed out to help Feng Wu. Xian Yi followed him out. So did Duan Chaoga. Feng Wu spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood in a row. Only then did she feel that she had spat out all the blood in her chest. Chaoga helped her to her feet. Looking up, she saw that young General Yi was walking toward them. In the end, he stopped in front of Feng Sun, glanced at Feng Wu, and stared back at Feng Sun. Out of my way. Feng Sun spread out his arms and shook his head angrily. He wasn't going to give in. Gosh! Young General Yi raised an eyebrow and darted a look at Feng Sun. You're so weak. One slap from me and you're dead. How dare you stand here? He then raised his hand. Stop! Feng Wu bellowed. She then took a few steps forward and tugged at Feng Sun. Get out! Feng Sun still spread out his arms, shielding Feng Wu behind him. I'm not going to let you fight alone. Let me help you. Feng Wu smiled bitterly inwardly. Of course, she knew what Feng Sun was thinking, but he was still a spiritual overlord, and there was nothing he could do. Feng Wu smiled bitterly. If you die like this, who's going to take revenge for me? Next to Feng Wu, Duan Chaoga burst into tears. Xiao Wu, you're not going to die. The Crown Prince is coming out soon. You're not going to die. After comforting Feng Wu, Chaoga quickly walked up to young General Yi and shoved him. Young General Yi was dumbfounded. The others were dumbfounded as well. Was she really not afraid of death? Duan Chaoga glared at young General Yi. Who the hell do you think you are? You're nothing compared to the Crown Prince. If he wasn't here, you wouldn't have been able to bully us like this. Young General Yi gave Chaoga and Duan Chaoga a half-smile and smirked. Get lost. But Duan Chaoga wouldn't leave. Young General Yi was obviously going to lose his temper. He was a spiritual sovereign. Feng Wu immediately took Chaoga and Feng Sun's hands and smiled bitterly. My mum needs you to take care of her. If you die for nothing, who's going to take care of my mother and Xiaoqi from now on? Go away. I don't want it. Holding Feng Wu's arm, Duan Chaoga burst into tears. Feng Wu looked at her in sorrow. Seeing that she was crying so hard that she couldn't breathe, Feng Wu felt sorry for her as well. In the face of absolute power, in front of the powerful Dian Empire, you're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.